Hey guys, this is Yo again. I got a lot of positive feedback on my last Mythic Plus commentary video, so I think I'm gonna keep going forward and making more of them, kind of giving my thoughts and some in-depth analysis into how you can start doing some higher dungeons. So without further ado, let's get started. So I've got the same setup as last time where I've got my current mouse is this big inverted mouse, normal cursor, and then my in-game mouse is gonna have this circle. We are doing a 23 Temple of the Jade Serpent on Tyrannical Week. I think it's Sanguine Explosive from maybe a week and a half ago. This was completely pugged, so no comms, nothing like that. No real talking about what's going on. We're just going forward, vibing along. And this first pull, just with the water speaker and the big water guy, we're lusting it. Just to get it on cooldown, try and get it back up, I think, for hopefully on the second boss. The way I like to handle it is I always make the water speakers my focus target, my focus kick, CCs. And that's because you want to be kicking Hydro Lance and using some kind of stop using some kind of stop on the tidal burst. The tidal burst will typically kill people if it gets its cast off. And Hydro Lances just do a lot of damage, especially on Fortified Week. So you want to be using kicks on those because they have that additional silence on it. The Tidal Burst will just not recast if you get it stopped at any time. And then the Tainted Ripples from the waters, you can LOS those, so most tanks will know to tank it by the corner and let everyone kind of walk. It's good to know which of these timers is the Tainted Ripple because the cast time can be a little bit short. So especially if you have a weaker that is tracking the casts on mobs, you want to be making sure to watch that. We're just kind of handling this very, very smoothly. We're not going crazy and pulling things like together. Some tanks will tank the first pack with 2 waters and 1 water speaker. Some tanks will take this water speaker into the second water. Her tank is just deciding to go nice and slow. I've also seen some people pull this back, LOSing it to the corner. This tank decides to grip these guys to this kind of corner of the area. When you're approaching this pack specifically, I like to kind of save defensives for the waters. Or if I can have the option to LOS it, that's really good. Right there, I just got a nice scatter shot on that tidal burst since no one had a kick available and it almost got its cast off. If you use CA on the very first pack, very typically, like on a 23-24, CA should be back up for this pack if you're going at like a reasonable pace. People aren't dying. It's also really good for you to watch who the Hydro Lenses are going on, because especially on Tyrannical, people will be able to take one without issue, but if both of them are going on the same person, then maybe you want to use like an Intimidate or something to stop one of those if you don't have a kick available. Wise Mari is a very silly boss. He is notorious for just killing pugs that don't pay attention to this corrupted geyser or to the explosions going on in the water. It's really good to get this weak aura because this weak aura will tell you exactly when those water geysers are going off, which is really important because those will one-shot you. I think like even on like a 15, they'll start one-shotting you. The circles that go out as a hunter on Tyrannical Week, they can get really, really close to one-shotting you. So it's really important to try and use a defensive of some kind. I think the first one I got, I used Survival of the Fittest, and this one I just used Bear on it. You could see how much damage it took. Especially if you want to be saving your movement options to get out of them before it can do another tick of damage. Because maybe the first explosion won't kill you, but that second tick might, if you're not fast enough. So making sure you're getting out far enough to use Harpoon or Flanking Strike, or maybe saving a Disengage if you know that you're going to not be able to be far enough for that. The Hydro Lances, 3 melee kicks can stop Hydro Lances from casting off completely. If you're in comms with like a prot warrior, like I am very, very often, Our prot warrior will say, don't kick this, because he's spell reflecting it. And that's just extra damage you can do to the boss really fast. But otherwise, you want to be just on a 3 melee kick rotation. Or if you have ranged players, like 2 ranged players and tank plus yourself, you can go melee, melee, ranged 1, melee, melee, ranged 2. And that will completely stop this style of cast from kicking at all, or from going off at all. Otherwise, this boss doesn't have very much other than that. It's very punishing if you do mess up on the geyser or on the water beam. But other than that, it's just a very simple patchwork fight. So it looks like I only got two of the corrupted water circles on me. So I used Survival of the Fittest and then Fortitude of the Bear on that. But you can also use Turtle on it and not take any damage, which is kind of nice. For bosses like this, it's important to track who's got kicks available, because you know, if the tank is kicked and if your rogue is kicked, then you really ought to be the next kick. If you want to kind of solidify yourself as like being the second kick in that rotation and you're in a pug, I like to do what's called fast kicking, where since I've got to focus on it, I'll hear a sound when it starts casting, and I am hyper focused on making sure I kick it as fast as possible, and hopefully the other pugs won't have like a slow reaction speed and won't kick when there's no cast going off. So first boss is dead. We're going into the second wing. Most groups at this level of key will skip these 2 pandas, Zhang and Zhang, because they really suck. They do a lot of damage because they have multiple magic dispels going on people. And they have more health than most mobs while being worth less count than most mobs in this dungeon. So you can skip that first Shah and the 2 pandas, and all you have to do is get 1 extra patrol when you get to the middle courtyard, and that'll completely make you good on count. The fish has a cast that makes your tank fall asleep. It's really important to get that kicked. You can coordinate with your tank, say, okay, I've got the first fish, and then you get the second one, and then you've also got the Shah in that group that is going to be casting a fear. So there's quite a few kicks going out, a little bit of coordination. If you want to kind of handle it all yourself, you can make your stops go on the Shah and then kick the fish, and hopefully someone will be paying attention enough to kick the second fish, because you can't get every fish kick. This bird queen, if you've got lunge talented, then you can actually just stay and keep mongoose fighting without any issue. This 3-pack is one of the toughest trash packs that is played, specifically because it's Golden Beetle. The Golden Beetle has 2 abilities. One is called Staggering Blow, which puts a really bad debuff on your tank if it goes off. And the other one is a shield, which will explode for heavy damage. You just saw we all went to half health because the shield was destroyed. And if the shield gets casted, then there's nothing you can do about that. The cat has 1 cast that it does once it goes below 50%, where it starts healing health. You want to try and take that as soon as possible because it will heal up really, really fast. And then the Hosen just enrages itself, which will make it do pretty tough melee damage to the tank. But if he is not enraged, those swirlies going around will keep casting. So if he does have an enrage on him, he does not have the swirlies going around, but he does a lot of damage to your tank. I like to try and jump down to the scroll before that pack dies to kind of make sure that we can start this RP sooner rather than later, because you can keep killing the trash pack, while this RP is going down. I just did not jump down early enough to make it really worth it. Strife and Peril is a very, very simple and boring boss in my opinion. All they do is just kind of party-wide damage, and then one person gets a buff, and then you gotta switch before those stacks reach 10. So as you're doing damage to them, to the boss, they're gaining stacks. And then if those stacks hit 10, then they get a shield, which makes them immune to all damage for a period of time. So our group is switching, I believe it's 7. So once they hit 7 stacks, you just switch off to the next guy and then the stacks fall off. The only other mechanic other than just doing kind of party-wide damage is this buff that goes out. So I've got a debuff on me, it shows that's stacking up more and more, but that's actually a damage buff for me, a damage and healing buff. So since I've got the best single target in this group, I just kind of claimed it for myself. And the way you give it to other people is by standing on top of them, kind of like on Thundering. So if I stand on someone for a long enough period of time, I will give them this buff, but I will gain a debuff, which makes me do less damage. It says that you take more damage the higher stacks it goes, but that really isn't the case. It's fairly easy for a healer to just keep it on the same person. You can see since I've been keeping this buff, you can really see the discrepancy in damage between myself and the other 2 people. If you are in a coordinated group, it's probably best to try and make sure that if someone is using a really nice single target CD, they get it. I know monks can do quite a bit of damage in their cooldowns, but otherwise it's just really good for you to kind of be greedy and keep it for yourself, because single target is kind of our niche at the moment. I have seen some other groups just stack it up to 10, make it really easy, make sure that there's no possible way to fail. You just attack it until it gets its shield, and then you switch once it gets its shield, because by the time the second one gets 10 stacks, the shield will have fallen off. Coming up next, we've got this Infestor, and then most tanks, if not all tanks, will also pull these packs from here. This looks like a wall. It looks like you wouldn't have LOS, but there's actually no LOS whatsoever. You can completely hit those guys with ranged abilities, with grip, with whatever you need. On fortified weeks, these Shaws that spawn are really, really scary because they do scale with fortified. And raging weeks specifically, the Shaws that spawn from the Infestor won't get raging, but the Shaws that are just naturally walking around will get raging. It's pretty tough. On fortified weeks, I like to try and single target down at least one of the Shaws to kill them early, before they have the chance to all explode at the same time like you just saw. If you do kill one of them early, it's typically a lot safer for your group to just be able to manage with 4 explosions instead of 5. Fortunately, on tyrannical weeks, they're not nearly as scary, and probably all 5 can go off without needing to use a defensive. But it's smart to save exhilaration or health pod or survival of the fittest, something else, some kind of defensive for when those explosions are going out, because it is very easy for you to just lose your focus a little bit and then die to them. The Mistweavers puts out curses on people, and if the curse gets its full cast off, they'll get a really big healing shield. So most groups will try and arrange for someone to have a decurse. I believe it's mage, shaman, or druid like we have. And those decurses will be a lot easier on the healer because they will no longer have to heal through those shields. They can just decurse the shield away. This tank decides he wants to do a double pack with the Fear Shaw and the Pandas, I like to call them. So we have 2 Shaws, the 2 Haunting Screams going off. A nice roar from the Resto Druid. Very nice him going into bear form to stop those. Once again, you don't have to kick them. You can use any kind of stop. The Mistweavers will put out a channel as well as them putting the curses on people. If they go on you, you can use Feign Death instead of kicking it. And Feign Death will make it stop its channel before it does too much damage, which is really nice. Here we're just following the tank, however he wants to pull this group together. The Shaw of Doubt, one of the mobs that's not the Fear Shaw, they do an ability called Dark Claw, which is just a really scary tank magic damage ability. That's the biggest thing that they're kind of paying attention to when they're doing these packs, especially on Fortified Week or Raging Week, because if you time Raging badly, then they can just kind of get one-tapped and die from full health. So if you are aware and have the reaction time available for that, you can save your stops like Scatter Shot or like Intimidation. That rogue tried to use Blind, but he was a little bit too late to stop the Dark Claw. And that will keep your tank from taking a lot of damage that they might not be paying attention to, or if they have some kind of lapse. So this is the extra pat that we have to pull to make up for skipping those 2 pandas and the Fear Shaw, I'll call it. And then those 2 mobs by themselves are more count than what we skipped. That's how low count those pandas are. And how inefficient they are, because they actually have more health than these guys. Right here, I'm trying to do a lot of single target damage on the Infestor because it has the most health out of all the mobs. I know I'm the best at single target, and I'm in a pug, so these guys are probably going to be trying to get as much overall as they can. So I'm going to help the group out, be quote-unquote ethical, and do single target damage on the Infestor to make the pack go faster. Because the faster the Infestor dies, the less Shaws spawn, and the sooner you can get on to going to the boss. Here we've got Lou Flameheart coming out. She's a notorious boss for tanks, specifically in her second phase. She's got 3 phases, I believe, starting at 70%, 40%, and then the final phase is from 40 to 0%. This first phase, she just does those flame waves that go out. They always go in a random direction, but this is kind of hard to track. But in the second phase specifically, the tank can actually control how those flames go out, which is really useful because the flames will drop a path, and it'll kind of cut off a lot of options for people to dodge flames if they're in a bad spot. So you can see I'm being nice and safe. I'm running out, not trying to cut corners and get extra GCDs out before the flames go out, because the flames do spawn out a little bit, like maybe a second before they go out, so it can sometimes be hard to react to them if you're too close to the circle. I like to save cooldowns for the Jade phase to try and make it as short as possible. We do have a Death Knight, which is pretty good at the phase, at handling the shields that go out on it, because you need to heal the shield off before you die. And Death Knights are really good at healing themselves, so they can deal with the shield pretty easily. But if you've got a warrior or a bear or a Vengeance Demon Hunter, that might be a bit scarier. Our tank actually dies here. He kind of messes up. And I know I've got threat because of my plate. So I just go into turtle and wait for it to fall off, make sure that the tank can get aggro before I go back to fighting. Because if I die, we're going to lose a lot of time. Theoretically, our tank could have just waited for me to take the Jade Serpent strike in my turtle, because I would have completely deflected the ability from going out. But I'm kind of happy he didn't, because my turtle might have ran out and I might have gotten meleeed. So we hit 30%, the dragon goes out. It's important to note, you don't want to do damage to that dragon as soon as you can, because the threat table on the dragon resets. So if you are the first person to do damage to it before the tank taunts or gets threat some other way on the dragon's probably going to melee you and you're just going to die. As for positioning on the dragon, since these paths are kind of locking out a lot of places to go at the very beginning of the phase, it's important to try and always just stand behind the dragon, because it will do a frontal focused on the tank. And if you're behind the dragon, you won't get hit by the frontal. If you're tanking this boss, it's really important to know that you don't have to take the frontal. It's not like Veximus where it stays on you until the end of it, but rather it locks onto where you are when it starts its cast, and then you can dodge it. So you've got the last little bit of trash for this dungeon. It's probably the shortest dungeon in the game at 30 minutes, but still one of the hardest because of just how the bosses react with you and how the mobs can kill you from what feels like full health. So we've got the Water Speaker, the Mistweaver, and the Guardian. The Guardian is just going to do a circle out and then a pretty big hit on the tank. Most tanks can manage it pretty well if they've got defensives available. But you want to dodge that circle or stop that circle because it'll stun you and potentially kill you on higher keys. And then the Water Speaker is before you want to kick the Hydro Lances and stop the Tidal Burst. Here we've got a Mistweaver and 2 Guardians. Pretty easy pack for DPS. Maybe a bit scarier for tanks. I'm not too sure. But making sure that we're just kicking the channel on the Mistweaver or feign deathing it off. And then your Curse Dispeller is paying attention to your party frames and dispelling the curse whenever it goes out. You can see it's going to come out in about 1 second, goes on the Priest. And very good, gets dispelled nearly immediately. And then in my opinion, coming up is one of the scariest packs, followed by the scariest packs. 2 Water Speakers at the same time, plus a Mistweaver. I actually mess up here. You can see those guys come in, and that's because when I tab target, I believe it targets either this Shah or the Doubt, and I throw a bomb at it. Big mess by myself, and we wipe really, really fast. I'm kind of cringing at myself right now. I say out tab target's shitty because it is. But yeah, that's on me. Big mess up, but we wipe fast and don't lose as much time as possible. Maybe 40 seconds, 45 seconds total. You can see the Death Knight decides to grip these guys all the way over here, so he can't even be close to them. Yeah, coordination is really important. We kind of just make it work because it's Tyrannical week since we're pugging. I stopped both those Hydro Lances from going off on the same person, I think. And just trying to stop the Water Speakers as much as possible. Feign Death, if you're paying attention to the Mistweaver, if it channels on you, Feign Death can be a really good asset because that's one extra stop that wouldn't naturally, you wouldn't naturally have access to. If you know you're getting double targeted, then maybe Turtling or Survival of the Fittest is a good option for you to use. But just trying to be aware of where those Hydro Lances are going off of, because they'll kill DPS pretty quick. This is the last trash pack in the game. In the dungeon. The Shah of Doubts puts circles down on the ground, so you want to be aware of where you're standing. The floor is kind of dark, so it might be hard to see where they're going out, especially since there's 3 different mobs all putting circles on the ground. You also want to be dodging the frontal from the Infestor, because that'll kill you really, really fast. Maybe you can take 1 or 2 ticks of it. We make pretty quick work of most of the Shah of Doubts. The tank is just kiting them now. I stun it because I know it's going to die really soon. And then once it's dead, we can just kind of deal with this Infestor by itself. Might not be the fastest, but we have a lot of time to deal with this final boss with the Shah of Doubt. And then once again, I'm just doing single target damage. Mongoose biting my heart out because I want the Infestor to die. For this Shah of Doubt, another good asset to have is a priest of some kind, maybe a healer priest, but a shadow priest as well is really good because they have mass dispel. You can mass dispel every other set of circles that go out on your DPS, which will save your healer a lot of time in trying to heal them and keep them alive, because 2 out of 3 sets or 1 out of 3 sets, they just don't have to worry about. As a hunter, I noticed that I'm typically the person that gets dispelled quite a bit, which can be kind of nice because that will allow you to use survival of the fittest or defensives like Exil or Health Pot on the ads that spawn. But if you're not getting dispelled, then you want to save survival of the fittest for when the circles go out. And these are the circles I'm talking about. So right here, we get mass dispelled really quickly. And you can see in about 12 seconds from now, the second set of Touch of Nothingness is going to go out. Oh, we actually have ads here. So I use CA. And you only have about 20 seconds to kill these ads. If you don't kill them in 20 seconds, then you're I think you just automatically wipe. The tank does an ability which just kind of kills the party really fast. So you want to be kind of saving some of your AoE burst for those phases. I try and hold like for Fury of the Eagle or Explosive Shot, bomb charges if I have enough focus, to try and do as much AoE burst damage to those guys as possible. There's another Mass Dispel that goes out. We're just kind of chilling in the AMZ because we want to try and take as least damage from the periodic boss damage as possible. And Lust, we just used Lust, so we're doing a nice little bit of single target damage. If you're tight on time, at some point, you guys might need to make a call in comms like, okay, try and use your CDs to kill the boss before they spawn ads, just depending on how much time you have left. We're kind of just chilling. So we're holding your CDs for these packs to make sure that they die fast enough. AoE CCs, like if you've got a Demon Hunter or Grips or any type of AoE stuns like Cap Totem, those are pretty useful for when those guys are grouped together, because otherwise they're going to be mailing you and you're going to be taking damage and worrying about that. But if you can kind of chill and just burst them down when they're not hitting you, that makes it a lot easier of a phase. And then if your healer is able to keep you guys up fast enough, then you're just going to be kind of chilling. You're just going to be doing a single target boss and hopefully timing your keys. So use my last CA, Explosive Shot, and then bombs most likely, Death Chakram. Just killing them. If you're in comms with your healer and you know you're going to be getting dispelled, it could be worth saving survival of the fittest for that ad phase, so you can just tank your guy without having to worry about them. If you've got really good reaction and pinpoint cursor ability, you could harpoon your ad and stay out of melee range if you've got lunge, and that could save a little bit of damage, but in my experience, that's kind of tough to do. I've not been able to accurately target my guy fast enough. So now I just tank them and make my healer suffer. But yeah, that was a 23 Temple of the Jade Serpent. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Pretty short key compared to my last one. That was a Halls of Valor, a 28-minute key instead of a 40-minute key. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys watch again. Thanks.